My sister and I was born on the Big Island on 40 acres owned by my great-grandfather, Cap Carter, and my parents were Ralph and Loretta O'Brien Carter. Years ago, there was an article put in a Grit magazine saying that this island was the biggest island in the world because the river did it all voluntarily. And it's, according to the old timers, it's about 4.5 miles long in the longest part and 2 1/4 miles wide at the widest part. So they felt very good about their island. But there's another interesting factor. We have the little island. The Pearl Island was an island that was voluntarily, the Neosho River voluntarily cut there, and we had the west part of the Neosho River went west, then northwest, then back south. The cutoff was right there, and it came around and went straight south. And by doing this, it formed an island, and then it met down there by the lower Conference River at 20 there. How Pearl Island got its name was people would come there and find shells, and they'd open it up. Some of them had pearls in them, and so that enticed all the people to come and look at them. The little island here on this big island. Well, in 1876, the Shackleton family lived on this island, and they watched the beavers that changed the course of the river. By changing the course of the river, it added about 70 to 80 acres more to the island. And the animals that lived there were the wild turkeys, panthers, lynx, wildcats, and others, and of course there was raccoons. They were all lived on the Big Island. Now on the Big Island in the center was the island school. It was started, the district was started in 1872, and the people then, their schooling was done in the homes. And then in 1905, an IF and Mary Jane built a school for them. They had, and they set it right here in the middle of the island. And at that time, there was 18 to 20 families that lived on the island. And in this school, they had from 40 to 50 children that attended the island school. And there was school there. The last school year in the island was in 1950 and 51 because the July flood of 1951 destroyed the school. Well, then school was ceased to school existed, but the people after the 51 flood left the island. At that time, there was only 3 families left. Okay, Pumpkin Center was a general store operated by Joe Herod, Herod, and sold various grains, sugar, and other food staples and bought furs. My father said it didn't last a very long time there, but he was there, and it was Pumpkin Center. In 28 and 29, there was a great big fire down there, and there was a family that burned up there at Pumpkin Center. Also at Pumpkin Center, the people on the island got their mail from Valley City. And when the post office was closed at Valley City, their mail came to 2 families there at Pumpkin Center, and the people picked their mail up there for 1 year. Then the United States Post Office started the real delivery service at there. Then we go down to Casey's Monument is here. It was named after a Neosho County Commissioner, John Casey, The bridge was built in the late 20s. The bridge only stood for a short time before logs flowing up the river knocked out the bridge's support and collapsed. The pieces of the bridge that are left are on the other side of the river, known and stand as the monument. And they are on the east side of the river, off 20th Road. And then we come on down here to Trotter's Ford. Back in the early days, freight hauling from Kansas City to Independence, Missouri. They came through out of Crawford County, across Lightning Creek. Then they came to Trotter's Ford. When the river was low, they could go across there for a fee. And then if the river's high, the people that run Trotter's Ford would ferry them across for a fee. And right east of Trotter's Ford was the Island Post Office on Trotter's Ford. City of Parsons had a pump station built, and it was finished in 1921, and they pumped water to Parsons. The ones that ran the pump station at that time, when it was built, and they helped build it, was the Diamonds. They worked at the pump station. The last family, and I'd been down to that pump station in the late 40s, early 50s. It was after the 51 flood. This Clarence Norton family had run the pump station, and they pumped water to Parsons. They provided them with a home for them to live in, and then as a child, I went and went into the pump house and saw the big pumps pumping water out of a deep hole on the Neosho River. What we have now is hunting lodges. Now, no, there's no particular, the last one I get to leave was probably C.D. LaForge, and he lives here in St. Paul, but they do go back and forth. But the homes are gone, and the lodges has been built down there. Now, the south end of the island, there's somebody comes back and forth, but I don't think it's a permanent home. Hunting. Because you got the people out back east, and my uncle came, he said, I always like to get a hold of Kansas deer, because they have better taste than the deer in Texas, out in the the open part of Texas. And he said they have better flavor. And I do have hunters that come to their bow and arrow, and they like our deer because it's got a good flavor. Eat beans and corn. About this one. During the Passion, so many people from Crawford County, they were without jobs. They came and knew people on the island, and they built cabins. And that cabin range went from the 40s, and I think it was in the 70s that all started to leave, because the older people were dying off, the young people wasn't interested, and there was all kinds of cabins on the island. Because on my parents' place, there was 3. And they were from Arma and Pittsburgh. They all died off. That was it. Then the hunting lodges came in about 2000, because this particular farm that my parents owned, and he took the home and made a lodge out of it, and then he burned it and built a big lodge down there. And then Barrett Satterley. Mm-hmm. And then he started buying farms to the east and to the north on the thing. And that was the first one. Jackrabbit Hill goes to the river, and what had happened back in the 30s, I was told by my father-in-law, Ray Gouvion, that there was such abundance of jackrabbits, they were destroying the crops, that they had jackrabbits hunts, and the jackrabbits usually accumulated on this hill, because there's a nice big hill here, and from here, from Jackrabbit Hill, this big hill, and they would accumulate there, and they had jackrabbit hunts to destroy the jackrabbits. and that we known as the old timers knows Jackrabbit Hill. I remember the 1951 flood, and we was living on the west side in what's called the Allen Place, and right over the hill was the creek. And we went down to the road that goes to the river bridge. The water, Dad had a boat. My sister and I were in the boat. He could stand up and touch the electric wires. That's how high it was. And we didn't go over too far because that was the backup water and it was still. And there's one person said it could never flood like that, and that was Bill Norton. He went down to his son's house, which was Clarence Norton, that ended working for the city of Parsons at the pump station. And he was on the top, he got up on the roof of that home. He had to get to the peak, and they had to bring in a cabin cruiser boat to go across that river to get him without turning over. Well, it finds its level.
Yeah.
Water finds its level, and then it's got forces to push it. Now, I have been asked, could we ever have another flood 1951? I said it just all depends, because it was after 1951 when they started the John Redmond Dam. But we got that way up the river, which the Cottonwood flows into that too, that if we would get a rain like they did back in the 50s down there, if it would be within maybe Chinook down here, we could flood again like that, because there's no dam to stop it.